Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Antoinette van Graan, and welcome. So, without further ado, today's review is the second book of the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, The Drawing of the Three. So, the book starts with a short sort of context from the first book. So, if you want the same here, I'll put up a card for my first review. And then it's interesting. You would assume for a series, the style and pacing and genre would remain the same. And it just didn't. The style is very much the same. It's still very much Stephen King. He's got that down. But the pacing sped up quite a bit. It got much more urgent. And then the genre almost changed entirely. So the previous book had a lot of a Western feel to it, but we've moved into a different part of the world now, and it's different. And I think the way I would describe this genre is almost urban fantasy, but not quite. And what I mean by that is it's urban fantasy with a twist. And this book is twisty, so I don't know if this was just a hint of what was to come. But urban fantasy traditionally would be the main world is our world, and then a magic system intrudes into our world and makes it a fantasy world. That's urban fantasy. And then in this, it's almost as if the main world is Roland's world, the fantasy world where the magic exists, and then our world is intruding into that and causing the magic. So it's a weird dichotomy that I've never quite seen before. Sugar is definitely Roland. His grit, his strength, his toughness, still his motivation till the end. His attitude, he's strangely insightful. I wouldn't say caring, but like a tough love sort of thing. I just really love him, and he's a character that will stay with me, and I like that. I feel like I have a friend in him that I just don't talk to that often. That's how real he feels. And then the vinegar again is the fight scenes. There were much more of them this time, and they range from really messy to incoherent. And there are a couple reasons for that. Okay, so the three main aspects that you need to set up for a fight scene are the setting, the stakes, and the threat. So setting is the lay of the land. Where are we? Where are the doors? Where are the slopes? How does the ground look? Can we roll over it? Can we slide over it? Can we just walk over it? Are there thorns or glass on the ground? We need to know what this place looks like. Is it a field? Is it hills? Everything. And then the second thing is the stakes. What happens if our character loses? Is it mutilation? Is it death? Is it what's my worst case scenario? And that has to be clear. And then the third thing is the threat. I need to know how many enemy combatants there are and where they're coming from. And this is not to say that your fight scene can't have surprises, but if you're facing 3 combatants and suddenly there are 5, you should kind of treat it as a new fight scene. And if you're not sure exactly how big the threat of each combatant is, then that's sort of part of it. But we need to know at least how many there are. Otherwise, it will seem messy. It will seem like, have we heard about that person before, or is he just getting stabbed in the back by a ghost? And the very first scene in the book is a fight scene, and it wasn't great. So Roland gets attacked on the beach by this like scorpion thingy. And I was like not really clear on the setting. It's just a beach, but are there rocks? How far away from the water is he? It was all a bit unclear. And then the scorpion thingy comes at him, and he's just like sitting there watching it. And that's fine, but then all of a sudden the scorpion thing is eating bits of his hands off. And like, the element of surprise, it just wasn't working for me. And I can't put my finger on exactly why. But I did not believe that the stakes of Roland being permanently mutilated were the stakes, even after it happened. He was crawling on the beach, half of his foot gone, half of his hand gone, and I still kind of didn't buy it. I read what was happening and I like logically could follow, but I didn't feel it. It didn't. It was kind of too fast, too ill-explained for me to keep up emotionally with what was going on. And yeah, I just, more explanation than fight scenes could really go a long way. Would I recommend this book? Absolutely yes. If you're looking for something intense, if you're looking for a story unlike any you've ever had before, all the way yes. I love this. I haven't read a lot of Stephen King, but if any of his other work come close to this, I'm already a big fan and I'm going to go after it. This 5 stars, 100% yes. It's strange. It's like, it's structured like a fairy tale, but it has this hard, brutal kick of reality in it that just, ooh, I really like. Okay, finally, now we can talk. So, I just said that the characters weren't straightforward archetypes. And I meant that. They're not straightforward. But they are archetypes. And the story is structured like a fantasy. But it does have that hard, brutal kick of reality. So, let's talk about this. The Power of Three is a common storytelling device, I'd say. You set up a pattern, 1, 2, and then break the pattern with 3. That's how the Power of Three works. It's very common with jokes. A comedian would use one example that makes sense, one example that makes sense, and then the third example that's completely outlandish that would get the laugh. That's the point. And you start to expect that the Power of Three is what's coming here, because we have a prophecy laid out before us. There will be, and that's the whole point of the book, the drawing of the 3. There will be 3 people that Roland needs on his journey. He will meet 3 people and he has to take them with him to the Dark Tower. They are going to help him get there. We still don't know what the point of the Dark Tower is, but I'm way past caring. I'm here for it. Before long, Roland reaches a door, and we know the 3 names of the 3 people he's supposed to draw. The prisoner, the Lady of Shadows, and finally, the pusher. Vague, yes. Definitely 3 people, right? So he reaches a first door, and on the door are the words, the prisoner. So now we've set it up. There are going to be 3 doors, and there are going to be 3 people coming out of those doors. So the doors are essentially portals into our world at different times. And Roland can kind of step into almost your soul, take over your consciousness, and move things from that world to his world and move people through as well. And it's like a gateway, and it's not just one way either. And this is all set up with the first door and the first person. So we've set up expectations. We know the limitations of these doors. We know what's going to happen. Our expectations are set, but we're also taught to expect a twist, because when you and I hear the prisoner, we're likely to expect something around a jailhouse or a dungeon or something of this sort. Instead, Eddie's prison is his heroin addiction. And because addiction doesn't really go away, it just kind of gets under control, he will be a prisoner for the rest of his life. And Roland and Eddie have a really deep bond. So this is what we expect now. We know how the portal works, and we expect the person to align to their label in a strange way, and we expect them and Roland to have a deep bond through sharing their consciousness for a while. And then we get to the second door, and this is the Lady of Shadows. And immediately we can take our expectations and destroy it. Because now there are 2 people on the other side. Not physically, but in their soul. So Odette slash Odetta have a split personality. One side is controlled, and one side is completely wild and fiery and a fighter. And then you start to think, how is this a twist on the Lady of Shadows? Well, in the Jungian theory, your shadow self is yourself with teeth. It's the darker side of you. And to a certain extent, that is what Odetta is to Odette. Odette is a calm, collected, well-off black lady in a wheelchair. And then Odetta is badly spoken, to put it mildly, and wild and a kleptomaniac, and she doesn't seem to be aware of the wealth that her other self possesses, and she's fighting to survive the whole time. And instead of these two characters bonding with Roland, they have a deep fear of him, and they bond with Eddie instead. Why do they have this fear of Roland? Well, the two sides of Odette or Odetta. Okay, so the two sides of the Lady of Shadows are the fighter, Odetta, and the calm and control of Odette. And when you put that together, you get a calm, controlled fighter, aka Roland. So, of course, these ladies are scared of Roland because he is their shadow. For both of them, he represents the shadow. And what you most hate in others is often, especially according to Jungian theory, what you dislike or fear in yourself. Okay, so our expectations have been set up again, and door 3 destroys them all. So, it's difficult to figure out who this man is, the pusher. Because at first, Roland is sure he's inhibiting the body of the man in black, because he's about to push Jake in front of the car, and that's what the man in black did. But the man in black is not there. This is just some accountant with a strange fetish of hurting people, killing people if he gets the chance, by doing things that could have been an accident. The pusher is death. And Roland soon discovers this, that he hates this man, and he takes full control of the body, and we get to see what the gunslinger would have been like in our world. Would have been like if he had fully gone over to our urban setting. And we get to see him beating cops and dealing with gangsters and trying to get medicine and trying to operate in our world with very limited knowledge. And it's honestly probably one of the most fun sequences in the book. But the pusher doesn't come back with Roland. The pusher stays behind. Roland kills him and then leaves and goes back into his world. And so we have the power of 3 set up, and where he sets up expectations and destroys them. Every expectation we have is quickly destroyed in the next door, and until finally we don't know what's coming next. But there's another archetype that really caught my attention that I really want to talk about. Yes, this is a theory, but I have evidence. Let me get my receipts and we'll talk about this. It all started when Roland said that this man, the pusher, is death, and death will be their constant companion. And it got my mind thinking, if we're working with the classic storytelling tool, the power of 3, what other classic tool is there if you send your hero on a big quest? Yes, the 5-man band. And then I got to thinking, and I got to counting. And guess what? I think there are 5 characters here. Even though physically there are only 3 people, we have 5 people there. 5 characters, unique, different, relevant, necessary. So we have Roland the gunslinger, Eddie the prisoner, Odette and Odetta the ladies of shadows, and finally we have Death, their constant companion. And Roland says a couple of times, he says it himself, that he really dislikes death and he really hates it. But he knows in his heart that these people will die to reach the tower for his goal. He might even die. But death will not stop him from reaching his goal. And now you might be thinking, okay, the five-man band is a classic archetype, but there's more to it than just 5 things going on an adventure. There are archetypes, 5 archetypes to fit the 5 people, or the 5 characters that have to be a part of this band. Well, I have an answer for that as well. Let's look into this. So the first character archetype we have in the 5-man band is the hero. The hero is motivated, strong, a leader, and highly driven. Roland, the gunslinger. He is our hero. Second one, also easy enough, is the lancer. The lancer is a little bit more laid back, not entirely bought into this whole mission thing, and second in command. Okay, that's Eddie. He is always there to pick up the slack when Roland is too weak. And he just fits the archetype too perfectly. He also isn't really into this tower thing, but he's here now and he has nowhere else to go. They're usually also a little rebellious and a bit of an anti-hero sometimes, but I don't think Eddie completely fits that anti-hero mold. Not yet. Next, we have the heart. Now, this character is typically useless from a utility point of view. They aren't worth much in a fight, they aren't smart, they can't lockpick, they don't bring anything tangible to the group. But they bring something even more necessary than anything tangible. The heart is the emotional core. The heart creates an aura of calm and collectivism to the group. And it's usually her job to keep everybody together, to make sure the group doesn't fall apart. And I think Odette definitely fills this role. Eddie falls in love with her. Odetta wouldn't be here without her. Odette is our heart. She is the emotional core and the calming presence that we need in this wild, crazy world. Then we have sometimes called the big guy, sometimes called the fighter. And this one is where our expectations get twisted up a little, so bear with me. I'd say this is Odetta. Oh, what are the characteristics of the fighter often? They are often a little bit dumb, and they're physically capable in ways that nobody else in the group is. So, Odetta isn't dumb, but she is badly spoken, which can be sort of sometimes intelligence and how well spoken you are linked. So that might be a twist on that. But I also think there's something more to the fact that she is a fighter. Yes, she's in a wheelchair. Yes, she's physically disabled. But that fighting spirit meant that it didn't matter. That woman crawled and had Eddie hogtied and ready to die. She is a fighter through and through. Her killer instinct, her desperation. She has the physical strength, the ability to survive that makes her a fighter. And if anyone wants to argue with me, go fight Odetta. I don't want to face her. I don't know about you. At least you know what the gunslinger is likely to do. Odetta, she crazy. And then there is the smart guy. And now you're thinking, you've run out of characters. But have I? What about our constant companion? What about Death? The third person, the drawing of the 3, the pusher that never came back. The one thing that Roland was willing to sacrifice for his tower, he would not let the pusher live. It's death. Okay, so what do we know about the smart guy archetype generally? So he's either a nerd or a wizard, always a trickster type of character, and generally is necessary to open the next level. Not necessarily that worthwhile in a fight, but he has to do something, lockpick that door, or figure out that puzzle to move us along in the story. So, let's think about Death as a nerd. So, who brings death? So, first it was the man in black, a wizard, a magician, archetypal smart guy role. And next, death was brought by an accountant. An accountant with a tricky mind. Both the man in black and the accountant, the pusher, were tricky and had nasty tactics of killing people close to Roland. And then finally, death is the only way to unlock the next level. Death was the final act of getting to the next step in Roland's journey. Jake's death was the only way that Roland could get to the man in black in the first book. And in this book, the pusher's death reminds Roland that there will always be death. And that these people he's come to love, the rest of his band, they too have to deal with death as their constant companion. So in short, that is my analysis and review of The Gunslinger. I loved picking this story apart. I love the archetypes that are hidden in plain sight if I was willing to look for them. Am I reading too much into it? Death of the author. A text is what the reader makes of it, and this is what I made of it. And analyzing it like this, ripping the story apart and getting to those nitty-gritty crafts things. This 5-man band thing has me so excited to keep going because I can't wait to see what's done with this. 5-man band on a quest after having a prophecy of 3. It's like a fairy tale, but the Brothers Grimm version. Okay, so tell me what you think. Bye!
There are those of you who would say that I've gone too far. To that, I say I've not gone far enough. I enjoyed this so much. I wish that every book would get my head going like this, going back to those old tropes. Maybe I just need to read deeper into other books, but this specific story really lends itself to it. And then I started playing around with the idea of a 5-man band, and I've been playing a game recently, Divinity, Original Sin. And in that you sort of do have the 5-man band. You have the 4 characters that you get to control, and then yourself, the useless heart that keeps everybody together. And so now I'm definitely going to replay that game, just creating the 5-man band and seeing how that works. I mean, with the way that you have to allocate skills to certain people, I think it'll do great. And maybe I'll even make a couple of videos about it if I can get it to work technically. But I'm just so keen on this idea, and I'm even reconsidering my own writing, and I think this is what a good book, well, not every good book should make you think, but it's nice to find it every now and then, and I'm really excited about this. So please do let me know what you guys think. Give it a like if you enjoyed this type of content. I think if I ever find the inspiration, I won't let anything stop me making one of these videos anyway. I'm really happy with this.